Burgess.
Long-winded intro, Anthony, maybe you can identify it for me. Let mine enemy but write a book, or some words to that effect. In other words, people really get at you when you've written.
It's in the Bible somewhere. It's in the...
Could it be Job?
I think it's a book of Ecclesiastes, isn't it? Oh, that mine enemy had written a book.
Had written a book.
Yeah, that's right.
Really? Yeah. I didn't realize it was that old, but...
No, it's pretty old, but it's true. Anyway, about your book, congratulations and welcome to the ranks of authors. It's your first book. Is it going to be your last book?
I don't know. Shouldn't that be up to others to decide, or how do you decide?
No, that's the point.
Like
that I like this book very much. It's a book about you,
yeah.
But I'm speaking for myself only, can't write about myself. I can only invent people. Of course, I pour something of myself into these invented characters, but I'd be extremely embarrassed to have to write a book about myself. And I admired that for a start, the fact that you were able to be candid about yourself, to be exposed to a very large, much larger public indeed, than the public you're exposed to normally here on television, because this is a public that runs through time, you know what I mean? You're exposed for a brief segment of time here, but now you're exposed for time that goes, what I believe is called diachronic time. This is synchronic time. You're going to be exposed to diachronic time, time running through. This book will be in libraries, this book will be there. Even if the book disappears, the book will have been written and will suddenly reappear.
That's a frightening thought. I'm going to try to withdraw the thing right now.
But it's true. It's the first thing one has to worry about. One has committed something to posterity. Well, he wrote a book called A Clergyman's Daughter, and he regretted having published it, and he spent a great deal of his life, to my knowledge, going round bookshops all over London and in the provinces too, looking for copies of this book so he could buy them up and then burn them.
Really?
Of course, he could, when he died, the whole thing was outside his control, and the thing is there in paperback now. But
did his going around buying them put him on the bestseller list and create a greater demand for the book?
He just regretted having written the book, and I can well understand this. I regret myself having written certain books.
Gee.
I never realized how seriously you took this whole business. You're relaxed, the whole atmosphere is informal, and of course this is the aim, it's the art to conceal art. It looks like an informal talk show. In fact, your approach to the whole business is highly professional, and this came out not only in the description of the way you work and the immense tensions you undergo before you appear on the show. For instance, you don't know this, ladies and gentlemen, but he has to go, may I use this word? No, he has to micturate or urinate before he goes on, and again, he has to do it, and this is true. It's down there.
Well, I know it's down there, but to say it on television.
Here is the interesting thing. You're very concerned about what I used to be concerned about, and still am in a sense, about the whole mystery of the comic entertainer. You have heroes like Groucho Marx.
Yes.
And a very great hero of mine, too, a fellow countryman, a fellow Lancastrian Stan Laurel. I was very, very moved by the tributes you paid to Stan Laurel in your book. You rightly said that Chaplin and he came over on the same boat from England to America. Chaplin never acknowledges the existence of Laurel in his autobiography.
That's right. In 400 pages, there wasn't room to mention Laurel.
But this is the sort of thing I mean. You are interested in these people. You're fascinated by their techniques, by the way they work. And I thought a great deal. I won't speak my thoughts aloud for the moment. I thought a great deal about the summations you made about the whole art of comic entertainment in that book. This was highly professional.
From readers?
But people always think that a novel is a kind of autobiography. I wrote a series of novels about a fat, constipated poet who wrote his poems in the lavatory and made ghastly stews for himself, was sexually impotent, and this has always been identified with me. I can assure you it's not really an identification at all. Whereas it's an invention. It's a total invention. But, we're committing this cardinal sin of getting away from the object, aren't we? Getting away from your book. Can I ask you something else about this, a bigger love affair than a love affair with writing, or with this kind of new hybrid, which is not quite entertainment, not quite instruction, not quite anything, and the stage itself? I get a feeling from this book that you have a deep passion for the stage. Is this true?
For appearing on it, or for seeing
it?
No,
for the whole process, for the whole dramatic process, and especially for professional comedy.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. You, I know, were an actor. You played the part of Ragueneau once in Cyrano de Bergerac, didn't you?
That's right, in a musical version of all things.
I know well, yeah. Am I right in supposing this is the central passion? I want to ask you... oh, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say I invite you to treat me as your guest.
You are the object at the moment.
I begin to feel that.
You're going to be dissected. I want to ask you a very fundamental question. Before I ask it, I'm going to answer it myself, in my own terms. This is this. People have asked me why you write books. My answer is I write books for a living because there's no other job I can do successfully or with any measure of expertise. Obviously, you have another kind of living. Therefore, why did you write this book? You didn't write this book for money, did you?
No. In fact, I've been told there's no money in books.
There is no money in books. That's quite so.
Well, that in itself would explode a myth, I'd think, for most people who must think, hey, so-and-so's on the bestseller list, you must be raking it in.
No, that's true. I think Barbara would say something very apposite about that.
If she were here, she would.
Well, yes, right, Barbara is here. No, but nobody writes books, I think, with the intention of becoming rich overnight. The person who believes he's going to write a bestseller and be famous and wealthy forever is very rare. I write books, probably my two friends here write books because it's a trade. It's a trade we can carry out more or less successfully. We're happy to have made a thing. The only moment of joy we have is that moment when the proof copy comes, you know, when it's between you and the printer, more or less. After that, the thing is launched, it's somebody else's concern. But back to this question, why did you write this? We all know, and it's repeated in the book, that you are one of the few people alive, perhaps the only person alive, who has read all of Henry James's novels.
Well, that's a terrible thing to know about anybody. In fact,
there
may be some I missed. I think that may have been exaggerated by a journalist.
Well, but you admitted in this book. The point is that I have a feeling that you have a literary ambition.
Really?
And that this talk show business is a kind of, what's the French, a pis-aller. It's a second best. But your real ambition is to use words in some permanent form. And this is a shy attempt at showing yourself to be a literary practitioner. You are interested in words, right? You are concerned about words.
Yeah.
You're the only person on this kind of business who is concerned about words. Most of the talk show pundits one sees, that thin man with a fat jackal, I forget their names, and the rest of them, Vermin Griffin, or some such name, these other people. They're full of expletives, they're full of songs like yeah, and I guess so, and wow.
Sounds like the White House tapes.
But
and they're all very good friends.
This show is the only show that I know of, the only popular show I know of that is built on language. Am I right in saying that? True candour is very rare. It's a very rare quality. And I toyed with the idea recently, being now 57 years of age, of starting to write my autobiography.
Would you say truth is glue?
Truth is a kind of glue. It's other things too. And I thought, well, now my first sexual experiences. It's a great temptation to antedate them for a start, and say that I lost my virginity at the age of 12, which is not true. I lost it at the age of 15. Which again is not true. You know what I mean? It's this... see, there are two kinds of writers. I think Yerzy is one of the... Yerzy is my kind of writer. He's a liar. A constitutional liar. Writing novels is lying. It's telling lies. Now, Dick's book tells no lies, as far as I can say. It doesn't sound as though it tells. So you've actually this may seem to be of no great interest, but it's fundamental. The process of writing a book is not just waiting for the muse to descend and then suddenly finding the words emerging from the tips of your fingers. It's an agonizing business. I said in one of my own books once that the writer's craft leads to addiction of various forms. It leads to addiction as far as tobacco and caffeine are concerned. It leads to constipation, impotence, diarrhea. Not at the same time as the constipation, but alternatively. It's an unhealthy life. It's a very unhealthy life. Sitting down, crouched over a typewriter. And have you had this experience of knowing what it's like? Have you crouched over the typewriter day after day with this work, typing it out? Well, you feel there's somebody over your shoulder.
Yeah.
The reader over your shoulder is there. And this produces very strange effects. I'm a bad writer, an unprofessional writer, in that I never keep a carbon copy. I just type the thing there on one sheet, because when there's a carbon and another piece of paper under the carbon, I feel that that piece of paper is watching me. I feel that I'm being watched from two angles, and the copy is an intrusion on my own privacy. How many words a day?
Gee, I don't think I could answer that,
No,
but I often filled...
It's the kind of question that a writer will ask, isn't it, sometimes, because I've been up against it in my time, still am, I suppose, but in the year when I thought I was going to die, I was supposed to have 1 year left to live, I wrote 5 novels in that year, 5.5 novels in that year. And this was very much a matter of knowing how much one could get down on the page daily. I found I could, if I could write 3,000 words a day, that meant in a month I could write 90,000 words. In other words, I could write a novel, by American standards, a fairly short novel, 90,000 words, which is about, yours is about, what, 100,000?
I don't know.
It's about 85,000.
I don't know. I'm too...
No, in a month.
Now,
did you have that sensation of time pressing on you? Now, there are various great autobiographies in the world. The autobiography of Benvenuto Cellini, autobiography of Hector Berlioz, The Education of Henry Adams, and that autobiography, in all of these cases, was the sole book that those particular people produced because they were eminent in other fields. Benvenuto Cellini, great artist, Berlioz, great composer, and so on. Now, do you feel this about yourself and your book, that this is the only thing you can do? Merely express yourself in a literate, witty, highly readable manner? Or are you now fired, and this I had in mind when I asked you that previous question about how you worked, have you now in mind the writing of another book?
No.
A writer called T.H. White, Tim White, we always called him, and Tim White was a hard-working writer. He probably worked for 30 years at this trade of writing, in a hut for the most part, on the Yorkshire moors with a couple of dogs, and if he made $1,000 a year, he was lucky. Now, he wrote a very fine series of books about King Arthur, which came out in a single volume called The Once and Future King. And the people who'd made My Fair Lady wanted to make a musical out of this, and indeed a musical was made. It was called Camelot, and it made a lot of money. And it meant that he got an advance of £80,000 for the use of his book. Now, he'd never seen so much money. £80,000 multiplied by 2.5, you get it in dollars. He'd never seen so much money in his life before. As soon as this money came in, the income tax people in England said, right, that's your year's earnings. We're going to tax you at the top rate, and the idea was to leave Tim with £2,000, which is, how many dollars? $1,000? No, $5,000.
4,500 or so.
He said, this is the reward of 30 years of work. Spread this over 30 years, and it's still not very much. And he had to get out to the island of, one of the Channel Islands, where he discovered there was no reciprocal tax arrangement with America. And that man who'd written the bestseller, and out of this bestseller came a great best-selling or lucrative musical, ended as a poor man lecturing in America to live, borrowing money from his friends, and eventually dying of a heart attack on the boat.